Hi, this is Riddhi. Welcome or welcome back to Sistersology. As you might have read from the title, this video is going to be about mental health. It is going to be very erudite and sensitive. So, a warning, you can skip the part where you think the topic might be a little triggering to you. Coming back to the video, I have two professional psychologists and a friend of mine who is also from psychology department with me. They'll be answering questions regarding mental health. Hi. Okay, before starting the interview, I'll give you the gist of the video. I have divided the questions into two parts, warm-up questions and significant questions. So I'll be starting with warm-up questions first. So we all know some of the highlighting problems of life are financial and health crisis, relationships, or career pressure. So what is the key to solving these problems?
See, the major key to solve any problem, a major thing that is required to solve any problem is to first understand that there's a problem, and second, to acknowledge it. Okay, so until and unless you do not realize that there's a problem, you do not acknowledge that there's a problem, you would be turning a blind eye towards it, or you would just brush it off. And that doesn't really help, it only increases. So, first, understanding. So, you need to have, you need to look in depth into when you're facing a problem, you need to look in depth into the issue to see where the problem lies, to understand that there is a problem, and to be able to define it accordingly, or to be able to explain what it is. Once you're able to do that, then you can actually solve a problem, taking the necessary steps or actions that are required to solve a problem.
So there are times when a small event can trigger your piled up emotions and that can lead to depression and mental stress. So can you share your views on why should we not bottle up our emotions?
In general, bottling up emotions isn't a solution, because emotions are messengers. They're telling you how you feel, what you're experiencing, right? If you get your body is notifying you literally about your experience and your interpretation of the situation you're placed in. If you ignore this, all you're doing is it's a metaphorical glass. It'll fill up, it'll fill up, it'll fill up. Till what point? At some point, the glass is full and it will overflow. At some point, it'll be, even from the smallest of situations, right? Small situations will make you angry or sad. It'll keep piling up, and then you lash out unnecessarily. So it is always better to just find effective ways to deal with your emotions. Express your emotions in such a way that your point is being made. You're also, like in a sense, you're making your point, but you're also not hurting anyone in the process. So acceptance is honestly the first step to stop bottling up your emotions, and it's important in my opinion.
Okay, so these were the warm questions. Now coming to the most significant ones. Talking about significance, we all know that depression is a major mental issue. So can you share your views on what causes depression and what are the symptoms?
Depression is something that is very common at the moment, because we have been seeing clients from the front line, and also whatever is getting updated in the repository of our counseling, probably the schedules. So yes, what causes depression at the moment is most of us are going through this crisis of food scarcity, economic problems. Education has taken a bigger toll. Many of the students don't have internet facilities, and then parents are wondering whether they would be able to send their children to school tomorrow, because there is a job loss as well. Also, all these things are told the situation that we are facing at the moment, even medical facilities. If you have a problem which is simpler than COVID, you still you will not get the same care because all the doctors or everyone is busy. So here, many other situational things, factors are causing this change of mood, which affects your sleep, which affects your thinking patterns, your emotions, and your actions. So there are three important things that depression generally causes. Is it brings a probably a breakdown in affect, which is emotions, then in the thoughts, which is thinking, reasoning, and also the outward actions or behaviors. So yes, a few of the symptoms that everyone is going through, be it an adolescent or adult, change in appetite, losing a lot of weight, sleeping too much, which is also called hypersomnia, or not sleeping at all, which is insomnia. Then they must be having this fatigue most of the times, low in energy. They feel worthless. They feel also hopeless about the present, the future, suicidal ideation. We do not know how many cases go unnoticed. It has been reported in our legal system, but most of the times it gets unnoticed because of the lack of money, negligence, many other reasons. So yeah, so these are the symptoms of depression.
So, talking about suicide, people generally do it impulsively rather than planning it exclusively, right? So, what should we do if our friends or someone come up to us and tell us that they are having suicidal thoughts? How do we handle them?
So whenever a person comes to you saying, I'm feeling suicidal, I'm having these kind of suicidal thoughts, the first and foremost important thing is to not brush their words off. It is to take them at their face value. When they say that I'm having these thoughts, it's normally like a cry for help. So when they say that yes, I'm having these kind of thoughts, it is necessary to take them at the value, at the face value. Like if they say yes, you have to say, okay, I'm there now. Let them vent it out. Whatever they're feeling, let them kind of vent it out and let them talk. You have to give them that space, that non-judgmental space to let them talk it out. Now, obviously, as students, you cannot really get into a therapy kind of a situation. But what actually helps is for that other person to know that yes, there is someone who is there to listen, who's willing to listen to them without judging them, without interrupting them, without advising them. Okay, that's the first thing that any person can do. Second thing is to help them identify people. Okay, there are therapists who are charging more, but there are also a lot of therapists who take a very nominal fee, or who are taking what is called as pro bono cases, basically free of charge. So identifying such resources is another thing. Identifying such people is another thing, or identifying these kind of helplines. There are crisis helplines. There are places which on call they help you with dealing with your suicidal thoughts or understanding where they stem from. So identifying these resources as a friend, as a person who is there with you, who's there with the person who is having these kind of thoughts, helping them, I didn't know that it is required. Okay, so as a person, as a student, for example, these are the few steps that you can take. Non-judgmental listening, giving that space to vent out, letting them know that you are there with them, constantly checking in, even when they're undergoing therapy. Okay, these are a few things that you can do to help the person who's having suicidal thoughts.
Yes, we know that therapy is very important. One should definitely go for therapies even if they are not suffering from depression or any of the mental health issues. Can you share your experience with therapies?
Okay, so everybody I meet, I will tell them something. I will say therapy is magical. As long as you find the right therapist for you, therapy will be the most beautiful experience of your life, right? And I genuinely believe, whether you think you have problems or not, everybody deserves to go to therapy at least for 3 sessions. Just that's what I think. My experience with therapy has been wonderful in the sense that once I finished, like I said, 15, 20 sessions, I felt like I was capable of dealing with these issues on my own, and I wanted to, in fact, see, because I think therapy, people will either mistaken therapy for like 1-2 sessions and I'm fixed, hallelujah, or they will think it's a lifelong process, and therapy is a lifelong process, yes, but you don't have to constantly go to therapy, right? You shouldn't develop a dependence on your therapist. You shouldn't be in a place where if you can't go to therapy for a week, you cannot function. Therapy is about making you independent. All the counselor is doing or the therapist is doing is giving you guidance, giving you some professional insight into how to handle yourself, handle situations beyond yourself. So therapy, like I said, has been very nice and gentle to me. I did start seeing another therapist, a different therapist for personal reasons again. But if I had to tell someone who's having apprehensions about therapy something, I would say go for it and don't give up. If the first therapist you go to makes you feel uncomfortable or it feels like you can't open up to them, don't give up. There is someone else out there that will be the right match for you, right? Like just like every doctor doesn't work for you, because all doctors have different specialities, they have different approaches. Even therapists have different specialities and different approaches, and you just have to find the right one for yourself.
So this is it. These were the questions, but I would also like to add something to it. If you're still watching this, okay. So having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. It's the fear of failure but no urge to be productive. It's wanting friends but hate socializing. It's wanting to be alone but not wanting to be lonely. It's caring about everything then caring about nothing. It's feeling everything at once then feeling paralyzingly numb. 1 in 4 people suffer with a mental illness. You are not weak. Fighting a war inside your head 24/7 requires real strength. Never forget how strong you really are.